Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod. We have Simon Dell with us. He is CEO and founder at CMO, trying to pronounce that right, and founding mentor at Brisbane Business Hub. He founded a bunch of businesses over the years, and we're going to discuss about all of these topics. He's been in the digital marketing space for quite a while, and it's not his first stint. So and I have a lot of fun today. Also talk about authorship, speaking, and podcasting, one of my favorite topic. Simon, can you introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about what you're up to nowadays?
Yes, my name is Simon Dell. I'm the CEO of CMO. That's spelled CEMOH. I'm sure people will see that in the notes. The website cmo.com. We're essentially a fractional marketing business that connects marketing freelancers to businesses that need someone to support them in that space. And that could be senior strategists, that could be graphic designers, that could be copywriters. It's kind of a bit like Airbnb, but for marketing people. So been doing that for about 3.5 years now. My background is marketing in the last 15 years. Yeah, it's a challenging business. All businesses are challenging, but I think we've been doing it for 3.5 years, and we're starting to get out of that sort of early stage, infancy, and starting to mature slowly, which is good. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
And how did you get into podcasting and why?
Podcasting, I started about 6 or 7 years ago. Of our own podcast, I've done about 130 episodes. It just seemed actually a relatively easy, low cost way to produce content. For those people that know me, I could probably talk underwater with marbles in my mouth for a couple of hours. So I enjoy talking. I enjoy public speaking. So really, podcasting was a sort of natural step, sort of to allow me to to talk. And that was sort of one side of it, but the other side of it was I got to interview lots of really, really interesting people. And I think that's why a lot of podcasters do what they do, is that it helps their own, above and beyond anything else, it helps your own development. It helps you learn and grow from interviewing 130 different people. And if you learn one lesson from every single person that you interview, that's a huge amount of educational opportunity for you over the years. So when I bought a microphone, and this is actually the original microphone that I bought to start it off with, and been doing it now for 130 episodes, I think, over, I want to say, about 6 years. So yeah, so that's I find it a really enjoyable pastime.
Is it one of your top growth strategies nowadays for your companies?
I don't think it's one. I wouldn't call it the top growth strategy. I would call it a growth strategy. It's part of the fabric of a marketing strategy. For me, a proper marketing strategy has, maybe 10 or 15 different things that you're doing to promote yourself or your brand or your business. And this is just one of those. But it lends itself really well for us to producing content, presenting ourselves as experts in subject matters. Look, it's even a good lead generation tool. If you can reach out to potential businesses that you want to talk to, sometimes it's hard to reach out to them and say, hey, we've got something we want to sell you, and they don't want to listen. But if you reach out to someone and say, I'd like you to be on my podcast, that's a very easy way to build a good relationship with a potential prospect customer. It's a lot of work, but it could be a high value customer that you want to build a relationship with, and this is a good starting point. There's very few people that would say no to being on a podcast, as I'm sure you've sort of experienced. So it's probably not my number one growth strategy, but it's a part of an overall growth strategy that helps support the rest of the marketing. And I think it's really important from that perspective.
Right. And question for your company, like what are your top goals this year? Like you have the podcast, you have the companies, you have the coaching, the speaking. So how do you segment your time? What does your day-to-day look like?
Most of what I do is either based on our own marketing or business development. So as a CEO, I fully believe that any CEO in any business should really be invested in the business development for the company. I think that's absolutely imperative. I think business leaders that don't get involved in the business development are missing out on a massive opportunity. So my day is sort of split between those two things. So I talk to a lot of clients. I work with the people that we use to do our marketing, do our internal marketing. So that's sort of where my day is split. In terms of our goals for this year, I mean, we're sort of approaching the end of the year fairly quickly, and December and January is often a bit of a slow time, or can be a slow time for our business. So really, from our perspective, it's growing that lead generation pipeline, or growing that funnel. We do a lot of outreach. We do a lot of events. Just trying to get in front of as many people as we possibly can. And that's really sort of, it sounds a bit broad, but that's our sort of strategy for the last few months of the year, and very much so in 2024, just building and establishing the brand a bit more in our local area.
And what does your outreach strategy look like at the moment?
It's kind of there's sort of three areas. Number one, we do a lot of cold outreach on emails. And we do that based on people that we know are looking for marketing people. So we're targeting people that have an immediate need. Now, the percentage return for that can be, quite low. So it's a numbers game, but that does work. The second thing is it's just standard everyday networking. We go to a lot of events, we meet a lot of people. Where we can, we're building that network of face-to-face meetings. I think, lead generation is fantastic, but face-to-face meetings is a massive opportunity that I think a lot of people don't realize is as important as it is. And probably the third thing is events. Any event that we can present at, and whether that's an event that we run ourselves, or it's an educational, or it's a corporate lunch, we try and do as many of those as we possibly can. So it's those sort of three areas help really grow our lead generation. But also we do search engine optimization, Google ads, Facebook ads, LinkedIn, all those kind of things. So we're not necessarily reliant on one channel from a lead generation perspective. And I think that's the key. I think for most businesses, in terms of generating leads and generating new business, it should be a multi-channel strategy. And each of those, spending a lot of time and focus on.
And okay, so in terms of your goals, lead gen for sure. The client retention part, how do you go with that? Like, what's your strategy to avoid?
Yeah, look, client retention is a funny one for us. Sometimes, a client can come to us with a specific need. I've got a good example would be one where they're looking for someone on a 9-month contract to cover maternity leave. Now, that's great, but the company of that size is unlikely to use us again repeatedly. They have a need for one thing, and after that, it's unlikely they're gonna need us again. So for those ones, it's still about keeping in contact, just reminding them that we're here. Emails, e-newsletters, personal phone calls, invites to events, that kind of thing. They're relatively low touch, easy things to do. The bigger clients where there's repeated need, we are just, trying to stay in front of them as much as we can. For me, it's about building a relationship. Again, I think good CEOs and good BDMs can have friendly relationships with clients. I have one that we work with that, me and him talk about. We're both Tottenham fans in the Premier League, so every week we'll have an email backwards and forwards about how Tottenham's done, in the Premiership, and obviously they're doing very well at the moment. So, so there's a lot for us to talk about. But it's just about touching base. It's just about, staying in contact, taking people out for a coffee, taking people out for lunch. And I think if you do that in a business development sense or a CEO sense, and you're doing that with your top 20, your top 20% customers, that's really healthy for client retention.
It is. In terms of challenges, we've seen the economy kind of decline this year, and it's projected to keep on over that course. How have you lived it on your end, and how have your clients gone through that, and what are your predictions for the next couple of years?
We kind of live in a relatively luxurious position, because if the economy's firing, people want to hire more people. If the economy's contracting, they want to lose people or move to potential contracting roles or temporary roles where they're not committed to owning a headcount. So we have the benefit, it's probably the wrong word, but we have the advantages that we kind of fit into both, growing economies and contracting economies. How do I see it going in the next 12 months? I think obviously there's a lot of challenges in terms of, conflict around the world, driving change in behavior. We're fairly isolated from that in Australia. At least we're fairly isolated from that at the moment. Australian businesses have tended to be relatively isolated to big global economic changes. That's not to say we're completely immune to them. Certainly we suffer and things change here, but from our perspective, it's really hard to make a prediction about what's going to happen in the next 12 months. I personally feel that we're just going to see a very flat economy or flat growth, for the next couple of years. I can't really see any sort of, booms or, people will talk about, economies collapsing and things like that. There's a lot of people, it's very easy to doom scroll through TikTok or Instagram or, LinkedIn and see the worst outcomes. And it's important to try and avoid that, and believing that that's actually what's going to happen. So I think a more measured approach is to sort of believe that, we're looking at a static economy for the next 2 or 3 years. And I think there's still a lot of opportunity out there for businesses, but smart businesses, people that are thinking on their feet and adjusting themselves to that changing world around them. There's a lot of business out there that are very, and we saw this in COVID. There's a lot of businesses out there that are very stale, shouldn't really still have survived, and COVID cleared a lot of them out. So it's hard to make a prediction about the next 12 months.
What do you have to say on AIs replacing or enhancing humans in the marketing space?
There was a really good conversation I watched the other week on The View, and I don't know if anyone ever I don't watch The View here. I just saw it as an excerpt on TikTok or something like that. So The View's that morning chat show, I think, in America that's got Whoopi Goldberg on it, and it's 4 or 5 women sort of sitting around talking about everything. And they were talking about AI being used in schools. And I use this example because I think this is a good example of how we can look at AI and its usage in marketing and business and all those kind of things. And what they were saying is that, you know, kids are being asked to write essays about a particular subject, and they're all going straight to ChatGPT to write that essay, right? And they were saying that this would potentially damage children in terms of their learning. And, you know, I mean, God forbid that not writing essays is somehow going to make us stupider. But there was another lady on there that said, look, this has happened before. And this happened in schools when kids used to, you know, count with their fingers or do things on a blackboard, and then they got calculators. And calculators stopped them needing to do long, complex sums and things like that. So all ChatGPT is doing is removing a certain part of a laborious task that, in my mind, doesn't necessarily add anything to you know, your capacity to learn. And her point was, instead of asking children to write essays, ask them to really understand their subject matter and present it back in a way that's more engaging, rather than just 1,000 words in an essay. Now, that to me is a great example of how marketing is going to change. We're essentially going to remove a lot of the laborious task management from people in marketing and from people in business, and allow AI to do that. It doesn't stop people being creative. It doesn't stop people coming up with new ideas. It doesn't stop people failing at things. But what it does is remove boring, long-winded tasks. What that means, I think, is that from a marketing perspective, people who use AI will be able to be more productive and will be able to execute better than people that aren't using it. Is it going to change everything radically? I don't think so. But it's certainly going to give people the capacity to work better, harder, faster, and produce better results.
Interesting. Because I would tend to think that most low-level digital marketing task and even medium-level will be replaced. Short-term, low-level staff, yeah, fully replaceable. You know, if they charge $20 an hour or down, I would say GPT does a better job. And if people are not doing that, in my opinion, they're somewhat lazy. Medium talent at upper than that, they're facing slippery slope because that GPT has information to pretty much everything, while they don't. Plus, GPT doesn't sleep, you know, and it's only a matter of time before there's agents that we can buy and ask them to execute some marketing tasks for us. I don't think the top folks will ever go extinct. But in your opinion, what do top folks have in the marketing realm? What could be those skills, those habits, and their magic that cannot be replaced by AI?
My number one in that will be understanding your customer. You know, you can ask ChatGPT to do, as you say, you know, remove those low-level tasks, you know, to do the processing, to do stuff while you sleep. But a good marketing person understands why somebody is buying something. And a good marketing person is then telling ChatGPT how to make that person buy something. And then ChatGPT or whatever AI tool is going to do that. So I think there is always going to be a need. You know, as humans, we want to connect with other humans. I found that standing in front of an audience and teaching them about something as a human to a room full of 60 other humans is the best possible lead generation activity I can do. That doesn't necessarily mean to say all the other lead generation isn't working or doesn't work or isn't important. But I find that standing in front of a group of people in a live environment gets my message across much succinctly, quicker, better, whatever, than anything else that I do. And I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think AI in the short term certainly is going to replace that. You know, people go, oh, well, I can learn these things online, or there's these learning tools. I go, yeah, I get that. There is learning online. There always has been. There has been for a long time. But just being in a human-to-human environment, networking, lunch, face-to-face, whatever it is, I think that that is still going to be important, and if not more important later on. And I think the top marketers need to put themselves in a position where they need to understand the customer more, and then they allow the AI or whatever to be going and executing what they're asking them to do.
Love it. Any thoughts on dynamic pricing in pubs?
Yeah, I had that argument online with someone about dynamic pricing in pubs. My background, I ran pubs and nightclubs for about 4 or 5 years after I left university. You know, look, it's this is one of those good examples of where everyone gets kind of up in arms. There's only a certain amount of pubs where, you know, that would actually work. You know, the smaller pubs, smaller bars around, they're not going to want to keep changing their pricing. It's a pain in the backside. You know, you could still have a digital board in there, but what if the digital board doesn't fit with the decor, and, you know, et cetera, and all those kind of things. And you know, again, it's another thing where everyone gets scared about how something's going to change, or there's an innovation, or, you know, someone's positive about it and someone's negative about it. We always deal with the extremes in all, you know, whether it's in news or whether it's on social media, whether it's in ideas. Everyone thinks about everything from extremes. Nobody really sits there and goes, well, let's think about this in the middle. You know, it's a good idea for some pubs. It's not going to work for most pubs. It's probably a fad. You know, we've had dynamic pricing for years in terms of happy hours and discounts. You know, it's just another name or another way of structuring, you know, something that's been going on for years. It's like I saw someone who developed this drone. It was a drone with four blades and a 2-person seat underneath it, so you could sit in it. And everyone was going about, you know, the innovation in this, and it's amazing, and look at this drone that can carry people. And I was like, they just invented a helicopter. It's a fucking helicopter. You know, you can sit there and call it this, you know, people carrying drone, but it's a helicopter. You know, so it's the same thing. We go around in these circles, and we have these patterns and so on and so forth. And it's very easy to get sold by the hype. And that's probably another good thing from a marketing or a CEO perspective, is not get dragged into that hype. You know, everyone talks about the glasses. Facebook did their Ray-Ban glasses, came out with a couple of months ago. Well, they've been out for a couple of years. And, you know, all these people on LinkedIn are talking about how AI, augmented reality, and AI in your glasses, you know, it's not going to change. It's not going to change radically the way that we operate as human beings. We're still going to want to talk to people face to face. We're going to still want to sit next to someone and watch TV. You know, life isn't going to change radically. It changes in gradual, slow movements. It doesn't change like that overnight.
Until there's Boston Dynamics robots making backflips while rotating and throwing stuff around. But
yeah, even that, yeah, and
even that was slow.
That's scary. Yeah, that
slow,
looks like scary
unquote,
shit.
Right? Yeah,
that looks like scary shit. But again, that will be a slow integration into society. It won't we won't suddenly walk out into the high street and there's 20 robots walking past us. That's not how, it'll integrate itself into certain parts of our life that we're comfortable with that happening. And it might be in warehouses, for example, moving boxes about. And 99.99% of the population will never see them, but it's a slow integration because humanity has to get used to these things,
Yeah, we will, I think. Think we're that way, just like Tesla's autopilot. At first was ridiculous, but then you just have to be behind the wheel and expose yourself to that new stimuli, just like you learn how to walk and touch things when you're young. I think that's one of our top characteristics as human beings, adaptation. So thank you for coming on, Simon. Where can people find out more about you?
Cemo.com. If you want to email me, it's simon@cemo.com. That's CEMOH. Or LinkedIn. There's a couple of other Simon Dells out there. One who runs a hotel chain, and the other one who takes photos of wildlife. So that's definitely not me. But you should find me on LinkedIn. If you search me, I come up. I think I come up pretty near the top. So